From the mysterious remains of sunken vessels to real treasures resting on the ocean floor, water holds secrets capable of stirring in us both awe and exhilaration. Today, we will plunge into the incredible world of underwater discoveries, where any chance find can upend our understanding of history. You will encounter stories of treasure hunters who did not give up even after countless disappointments, of sunken great liners, and even of the very first submarines in history. We will reveal exactly what surprises await unwary explorers and how terrifying the long-forgotten evidence of past catastrophes can sometimes be. Among the legendary maritime disasters, perhaps none compares to the ill-fated liner Titanic. Since its first and last voyage at the beginning of the 20th century, this tragedy has never ceased to stir the collective imagination. On one occasion, researchers set out to study the condition of the ship on the ocean floor and made a heartbreaking discovery. Boots and fragments of a coat that apparently belonged to one of the passengers who remained on board forever. Closely tied to the emotional side of the Titanic's sinking, these personal items remind us that every vessel is not only a technical achievement, but also the sum of living people's stories, of their hopes, plans, and destinies. The tragedy of the Titanic has been recreated countless times in films and books, and interest in it remains undiminished to this day. On board were more than 2,000 passengers, yet the number of lifeboats was intentionally far fewer than required. Luxury and faith in the ship's unsinkability turned into a colossal drama for hundreds of families. Researchers believe that the boots and coat fragment lay where it was impossible to save a person. It is thought that they became the sole silent witness to one passenger's last hour of life. This story reminds us once again of the human factor, of errors, and of the underestimation of nature's forces. Moreover, each time explorers descend to the wreck, they discover new fragments and finds, sometimes tiny, but always filled with enormous historical significance. It is both thrilling and terrifying, for every detail reflects someone's irreparable loss. In the middle of the 19th century, a merchant vessel plied the Baltic Sea, and according to archival records, it sank off the coast of Finland. Only many decades later did divers exploring the wreck stumble upon crates of bottles, whose contents turned out to be beer of incredible age. It is believed that this ale may be around 170 years old. Remarkably, the cold, dark waters and the stable depth helped preserve the flavor and chemical composition of the antique brew. To unlock the secret of its recipe, a team of Belgian brewers studied samples in detail, identifying the yeast strain, the level of bitterness, and the sweetness. Experts surmised that only a small amount of hops was used, and the malt was treated so that the beer's taste remained slightly sweeter than modern ales. As a result, the team recreated the historical recipe, giving enthusiasts of frothy drinks the chance to touch the past. It also became clear that the conditions of the Baltic Sea played a decisive role in the bottle's conservation. The water temperature was relatively stable, and the absence of direct light and almost complete stillness preserved the beer's unique characteristics. For food historians, such finds are no less valuable than a chest of gold. They provide insight into the everyday life of people of a long-past era and what they consumed. At times, the depths conceal not only artifacts, but also grim evidence of tragedy. Such was the case with a merchant ship that foundered off the coast of the island of Antiphera as early as the 1st century, BCE. Researchers diligently studied the remains of the vessel, which were split by enormous boulders that presumably slid into place during an earthquake around the 4th century CE. Among the many ancient utensils and wreckage, a human skeleton was unexpectedly discovered. This macabre exhibit reminds us that shipwrecks are not only treasure troves, but also tragedies that claim lives. In addition to this chilling testimony, archaeologists recovered other astonishing finds. a bronze disc of unknown purpose, a fragment of an ancient statue, and a famous mechanism whose intricacy still evokes amazement. All of this illustrates the high level of knowledge possessed by people of that era and shows that the ocean conceals far more secrets than we can imagine. Curiously, researchers made several attempts to lift these heavy stones and reach the main portion of the ship, which might contain even more artifacts. However, strong underwater currents and dense sediment prevented them from completing the task quickly. Today, scholars hypothesize that beneath these boulders, new parts of the enigmatic mechanism or undeciphered inscribed tablets may lie hidden. Sometimes the most poignant and important clues to maritime disasters are neither treasures nor ancient sculptures, but ordinary letters that never reached their intended recipients. One example is the discovery of hundreds of envelopes raised from a ship that sank in the early 40s of the 20th century off the coast of Ireland. Boxes of mail were en route from Europe to Asia, and they preserved fragments of feelings, hopes, and worries of people living during a global military conflict. Most moving of all was a letter from an iris, which experts managed to partially reconstruct by piecing together the soggy, scattered scraps. She was apparently writing to a beloved stationed in one of the Asian colonies. The majority of the correspondence was lost beneath the waves and never reached those who awaited it. Today, these letters are stored in specialized archives, where specialists painstakingly study them to uncover the stories and identities behind each envelope. Such a discovery carries not only cultural and historical value, but also makes one reflect on how a seemingly insignificant detail, a letter, can become a genuine revelation for future generations about the lives and relationships of distant times. No less intriguing among the discoveries from that same ancient wreck off Antikythera was the so-called Antikythera mechanism. For a long time, researchers could hardly believe that such engineering marvels could have existed as early as the 1st century BCE. When the device was lifted from the seabed, it became clear that it contained about 30 gears of various diameters, reminiscent of the intricate workings of medieval cathedral clocks. Today, it is believed that it was intended to calculate astronomical events, including the positions of celestial bodies and possibly the phases of the moon. While scientists grappled with what this technological leap in the ancient world implied, scanning and radiographic analysis continued to reveal new details. This mechanism challenged the conventional view of the modest engineering abilities of ancient civilizations. Some even joke that such a clever device might have been the product of extraterrestrial intelligence. Yet historians press on, seeking logical explanations and noting that the ancient world was far more advanced than commonly assumed. On the coast of Caesarea in Israel, archaeologists once stumbled upon two ancient ships that, as analysis showed, had sunk in different centuries, but, by a grim coincidence, in almost the same spot. It turned out that one had been claimed by the sea more than 16 centuries ago, and the second went down many centuries later. Inside, scholars found numerous small artifacts, including a ring set with a green stone carved with the figure of a young shepherd carrying a lamb on his shoulders, a very early symbol of Christianity. Experts believe in this ring testifies to the emergence of Christian iconography long before the official church structure was established. Judging by its style and materials, the vessel came from Italy and failed to enter port safely. While much of its cargo, precious metals, ceramics, and household items, remains buried in the depths, some finds have been raised to the surface and studied by specialists in early Christian history. A host of questions remain about who exactly sailed on these ships and what other mysteries may lie among their wreckage. Sometimes even the latest technologies of their time cannot avert catastrophe. Such was the fate of the steamship Andrea Doria, which was bound for New York in the mid-20th century. On board were several hundred passengers, but a dense fog impeded visibility and the vessel relied on radar. Unfortunately, the electronic chart was misread, resulting in a catastrophic collision with another ship. The impact tore massive holes in Andrea Doria's hull, and the ship sank after a few hours. Although most passengers managed to evacuate, dozens still perished. This tragedy, occurring in an era when technology was deemed sufficiently advanced, again underscored how human error and the unpredictability of nature can deal a decisive blow even to the most perfect machines. Subsequent investigations of the wreck showed that Andrea Doria sank relatively close to shore. Divers later recovered china, personal belongings, and even valuables left in cabin safes. Many of these discoveries have enriched maritime museum collections. Imagine a hunt for sunken pirate gold that can last for decades. Spanish galleons once carried jewels and coins across the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic. One such vessel, the San Jose, foundered in waters beset by storms and pirates. According to historians' estimates, its cargo contained fabulous riches, tons of silver and gold. Yet the quest dragged on for many years. Only when modern equipment became capable of detailed seabed scans did researchers off the coast of Florida come upon gold coins that led them to the galleon's resting place. Among the finds were the rare Royal 8 Reales coins, struck by special order. The story of the San Jose's wreck remains fraught with controversy as governments, private firms, and treasure hunters all vie to be the first to claim its chests. Still, the fact remains, the deep sea continues to safeguard the remains of the Spanish Empire, which once possessed immeasurable wealth. Any attempt to approach a sunken ship is not only an adventure, but also a long journey through bureaucracy and legal complexities. The tale of the mysterious shipwreck off Antifera would be incomplete without mention of an impressive discovery, a colossal marble head believed to belong to the legendary statue of Hercules. For many years, this head was separated from its body, which had previously been displayed in a museum in Athens. Reuniting the fragment gave divers and archaeologists the chance to restore the sculpture. This gigantic head became, in a sense, a symbol of how the past can be scattered across the sea floor and then suddenly come together again. A team of researchers from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration once tested a new underwater drone in the Gulf of Mexico when they unexpectedly came across the wreckage of an unknown wooden vessel. Upon closer examination, it turned out that the ship likely dated to the 19th century and may have been a brig or schooner. It soon became clear that some sections of the hull appeared burned and metal fittings were bent. This suggested that a fire had broken out on board, ultimately preventing the crew from saving the vessel. Unlike other wrecks of this kind, almost no personal belongings were found, perhaps because those on board tried to carry off everything of value. Researchers decided to make an additional survey, run, and take detailed photographs. The results showed that even after so much time on the ocean floor, parts of the ship's structure had been preserved, making it invaluable to archaeologists and historians of shipbuilding. The next step is to create a virtual three-dimensional model that can quite literally tell how this vessel lived and breathed in its heyday. An old Swedish legend tells of a warship that supposedly brought misfortune wherever it went. This vessel was the Mars, named after the Roman god of war. In the 16th century, the Mars was considered the most powerful and fearsome ship in the Swedish fleet. However, its end came in a horrific naval battle in which fire and a gunpowder explosion doomed the entire crew and the treasures aboard. The wreck of the Mars lay on the seabed for more than 4 centuries until divers managed to locate and identify unique elements of its construction. On the ocean floor, parts of its artillery, sections of the wooden hull, and Even objects thought to be part of the royal treasure remained astonishingly well preserved, so much so that historians call it a time capsule of the 16th century. Modern technologies now allow for highly detailed three-dimensional scans without raising the entire vessel. This approach helps scholars study the Mars carefully without disturbing its natural surroundings. Already, the recovered plans of the ship are substantially revising our understanding of fleets from that era. Scientists believe it incorporated engineering solutions then considered advanced and unavailable to most European powers. In British waters, one often finds traces of bygone maritime grandeur, and among the most striking discoveries is the so-called shipwreck with millstones. This 13th century vessel carried a large number of stone millstones for grinding, massive cauldrons, and even whole slabs of rare marble. Experts believe the ship sank near the English coast and was buried under sand deposits, which helped preserve it exquisitely. However, once it was uncovered and the sand removed, the wood began to deteriorate rapidly upon contact with water and oxygen. Conservators had to swiftly cover the find again with sandbags to protect it for future generations. In recent years, heated debates have arisen about whether to raise fragments of the ship for museum display or leave it on the seabed. So far, most lean toward leaving the vessel in place, as modern conservation techniques are deemed too costly and complex. Historians concede, however, that it is perhaps the only so well-preserved example of high medieval European shipbuilding. During the Second World War, aircraft carriers played a decisive role in the Pacific theater. The United States ship Lexington became one of the first vessels of its kind, but its career ended dramatically during a fierce engagement with Japanese forces. The ship took part in a historic battle when carriers first exchanged airstrikes. Damage from torpedoes and bombs proved too severe, and commanders decided to scuttle the Lexington to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. Nevertheless, a significant portion of the crew was rescued, including the commanding officer and the ship's dog, Wags. Many years later, when a research team discovered the remains of the Lexington at a depth of nearly 2 miles, they were astonished by how well preserved some of the equipment was. On the ocean floor lay fighters, anti-aircraft guns, and other weaponry. Some aircraft on the deck still bore their squadron markings, which allowed historians to identify the units involved in those pivotal battles. Personal effects of pilots and sailors found at the wreck stirred special excitement among researchers. It was as though the voices of those long-gone mariners had returned from the past. Today, the study of the Lexington serves as a true window into the history of naval and aerial warfare. In Russia, a group of enthusiasts built a waterproof drone to film a recently discovered wreck. When they reviewed the footage, it appeared to be a slave ship, its decks strewn with the remains of those lost. The most chilling detail was that one of the bodies lay as though gazing upward. Was it merely an odd position or something more sinister? Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you make of it? Amid the turmoil of the American Civil War in the middle of the 19th century, a groundbreaking invention appeared. The first submarine capable of sinking an enemy vessel. It was named H.L. Hunley in honor of its creator, Horace Lawson Hunley. The submarine was powered by hand. Several crew members turned an internal crankshaft to drive the propeller. Its momentous achievement came when it attacked the Union warship Housatonic, which quickly went down. But the Hunley herself vanished under mysterious circumstances. It was not until the end of the 20th century that the submarine was discovered off the coast of Charleston. Inside lay the crew's remains, which have become an invaluable source of information about those historical events. Researchers suppose that the Hunley's loss may have been due to design flaws or the detonation of her own explosives. Today, the submarine resides in a specialized laboratory where it is treated with protective coatings. Meanwhile, historians examine artifacts found with the vessel, personal belongings of the crew, broken components, and tools. This serves as an important lesson in how rapidly naval technology advanced even in those turbulent times. Few ships capture the imagination like those that passed between honest sailors and fearsome pirates. The Ua galley became renowned for having served first as a passenger and cargo vessel in transatlantic trade, including the transport of enslaved people, before being seized by the notorious Captain Samuel Black Sam Bellamy, who turned it into his pirate flagship. The Ua galley was laden with plundered treasures when a storm off Cape Cod shattered the lives of most aboard. Only a handful survived, and the greater part of the loot sank with the ship. For a long time, it was assumed that the riches were lost forever. However, in the late 20th century, brave explorers identified the wreck's approximate location and began excavations on the seabed. Cannons, sailors' personal effects, and parts of the pirate hoard were recovered. Later, a fragment of the ship's bell bearing its name confirmed the find's authenticity. Archaeologists believe that even now, more rare coins and jewelry lie hidden among the wreckage. After all, a sunken pirate ship never reveals all its secrets at once. In the early 40s of the 20th century, the British steamship Thistlegorm was carrying weapons, vehicles, and supplies to Allied forces in North Africa when it came under Luftwaffe attack and sank near the Egyptian coast in the Red Sea. The ship lay on the ocean floor for many years until the legendary oceanographer Jacques Cousteau and his team discovered it in the mid-20th century. They raised several artifacts, among them the ship's bell and the captain's safe. Cousteau's photographs and notes later caused a sensation in popular magazines, making the Thistlegorm one of the best-known wrecks in the world. Today, the site attracts not only archaeologists, but recreational divers who speak of rows of trucks standing in the holds as if ready to roll and of time-blackened weaponry. Each dive to the Thistlegorm brings fresh discoveries, as sand and currents intermittently expose hidden sections of the wreck. During the Second World War, when air battles often raged above the sea, many aircraft ended up on the ocean floor. Approximately 30 miles off San Francisco, researchers came upon a sunken carrier group, where among the debris, they discovered intact fuselages of combat planes from that era. It turned out that one of the ships had served in the fiercest sectors of the Pacific Front before being sent for nuclear weapons tests at Bikini Atoll. The vessel suffered severe damage and was deemed irreparable, so it was scuttled, sending several of its aircraft to the depths with it. Decades later, archaeologists using underwater unmanned vehicles examined every inch of the wreckage. They recovered instrument panels, steel engine components, and even pilots' personal markings on the airframes. Scientists believe that the radiation from those nuclear tests partly altered the metal's structure. Nevertheless, with proper precautions, divers can continue to study this underwater storeroom of history, revealing unknown chapters of military heritage. Thus, a chance dive or a painstaking search can yield genuine sensation when historians and archaeologists handle relics of the distant past. Each discovery confirms that the sea forgives no mistakes, yet generously preserves priceless artifacts for posterity, sometimes offering a glimpse into vanished civilizations, tragedies, and heroic deeds. If you have any questions or wish to learn more about these and other mysterious ships, be sure to share your thoughts. And most importantly, keep watching, for the world of underwater mysteries is boundless. Who knows what new discoveries await us on the next exhilarating dive?